Percy had been different from ordinary people ever since he was a child. He always saw things that other people could not see. Percy loved to climb to the roof of the building because there he could see big monsters flapping their wings. But Percy's teacher said that it was all just an illusion. But then, Percy saw more and more strange things. He even saw a rhinoceros walking on the road. But in the next second, it turned into a garbage truck. Percy's classmates all thought he was delusional. Therefore, Percy had almost no friends. He could only silently draw the monsters he saw. Over time, the number of monsters Percy saw increased. Then one day, Grover suddenly appeared, and he quickly became Percy's best friend, because they were both at the bottom of the food chain at school. Only Grover cared about the hallucinations Percy saw. Sometimes, Percy himself suspected that he was sick, until one day, the strange things suddenly had an explanation. That day, the students were on a tour of a museum. The teacher was explaining Greek history. He also talked about the sculptures of the gods. Suddenly, the letters on Percy's spreadsheet became confusing. He thought he was hallucinating again. So at that time, Percy did not care about the spreadsheet anymore. But when he came to the statue of Perseus, he suddenly heard his mother's voice. It turned out that the name Percy originated from the story of this hero named Perseus. Percy's mother always hoped that her son would become tough. He must be brave enough to face the upcoming challenges. Suddenly, someone called Percy's name, and he answered. Percy thought it was his mother's voice, but he was mocked by his classmates. Luckily, the professor stopped this farce in time. Then, he gave Percy a pen. The professor told him to be ready to accept the fate that God had set for him. Percy was quite confused when he heard that. He did not understand what that meant. When it was time for lunch, a girl in the class came to bother Percy again. So Percy angrily rushed over, but he just waved his hand slightly, and the girl was pushed into the fountain. Now Percy was even more confused. He wondered why so many strange things happened today. Suddenly, the pen that the professor had just given him kept shaking in his hand. Then, Percy noticed that the female teacher named Dort was walking towards him. She even spread her wings and turned into a monster. At the same time, Dort kept asking where it was. Then, she jumped on Percy. But at that moment, the pen turned into a sword and stabbed the monster's body. Before Percy could react, the monster turned into dust and disappeared. Afterwards, Percy and Grover were taken to the principal's office for punishment. At this time, Percy insisted that he had not touched the girl named Nancy, but Grover beside him suddenly broke the situation. He said that Percy had planned to take revenge for Nancy because she had bullied Percy for a long time. Today, Percy finally had the chance, so he deliberately pushed Nancy into the water. Those words completely broke Percy's heart, because his only friend betrayed him. Unexpectedly, as soon as Percy got home, he received another shock. Percy's stepfather received the notice of his expulsion. He began to blame Percy endlessly. However, Percy's mother did not scold her son, but quietly hugged him tightly. Then, she gave him a bag of candy as a consolation gift. Sally seemed to understand everything about her son. While it was still raining heavily, she took Percy to the cabin on the beach. Only then did Sally explain everything to her son. The reason they came here every year was because Sally had met a man on this beach. After that, Sally seemed to be fascinated by him. But when the two fell in love, Sally found out that he was a god. They had a son together, Percy, and such a hybrid son is often called a demigod. However, demigods will not be safe in this world. As Percy grew up day by day and knew his true identity, he would have to face the pursuit of evil forces. This was also the fate that Percy could not escape. At this moment, Percy was completely devastated when he heard the truth. He even thought that his mother's words were lies. But at this moment, there was a knock on the door very quickly. It turned out that Grover had come here, even though it was raining heavily outside. It seemed that he and Sally had planned something. When Grover just entered, he panicked and said that they were in big trouble. At this time, Percy was very surprised to discover Grover's strange legs. However, Grover had no time to explain, because they needed to leave right now. It turned out that Grove was actually a satyr in disguise to protect Percy. Normally, he would be able to sense danger from afar. However, Dort's attack was too sudden, because she had hidden her tracks in the fog. The fog could make the magical world invisible to humans, just like how people couldn't see Grover's goat legs. It was similar to Dort's wings at the museum today. However, the force Percy's group was facing was too strong. Therefore, Percy would be sent to the half-blood camp as soon as possible. But as Grover finished speaking, they noticed a large monster chasing them. Percy recognized it immediately. It was a minotaur from ancient Greek mythology. It quickly caught up with their car. Sally saw this and quickly turned the wheel, but the minotaur's horn got stuck in the steering wheel. Sally had no choice but to step on the gas and drive into the ditch. Fortunately, all three survived the car crash. They continued to move. Finally, the three of them saw the line that the monster could not cross. Percy would be safe if he could get to the other side. Unfortunately, Sally was just a normal person, so she could not follow her son there. To give Percy and Grover more time to escape, Sally took Percy's coat. Then she tricked the monster that was still still chasing. At this time, the Minotaur had passed through the bushes and was heading this way. So Percy and his mother had to quickly part ways here. Sally shouted and held out Percy's red coat. Thus, a battle with a difference in strength began. At this time, Percy was worried about his mother, so he turned back, but he witnessed his mother being gored by the Minotaur. While Percy could only watch helplessly, his mother was lifted up by the Minotaur and turned into ashes. In Percy's despair, he uncapped the pen and turned it into a sword. The Minotaur saw this and was ready to attack, but Percy also rushed forward without hesitation. However, under the strong gore, both Percy and the Minotaur were knocked to the sides. Percy still tried to stand up to slash at its horn, but he was thrown aside by the Minotaur. The large sword was also sent flying to a nearby pile of hay, but before Percy could retrieve the sword, the Minotaur suddenly attacked him. After Percy avoided the attack, he climbed onto the Minotaur's back. No matter how the monster struggled, Percy still refused to let go. Finally, he found the right moment. By some terrible power, Percy broke off the Minotaur's injured horn, then stabbed it into ashes. When Percy opened his eyes, he saw everyone surrounding him, and in front of him was a vague image of a centaur. When Percy woke up again, he saw Grover guarding the bed. The horn that Percy had broken off the Minotaur was lying on the table. It was then that he realized that all of this was not a dream. The reason Percy had to come here was because he was the son of a god, so he decided to find his father first. When Percy went out, he saw a man wearing sunglasses. Percy asked him where the camp's leader was. At that moment, Grover hurried over and introduced the man as Dionysus, the director of the camp. In addition, he was also the god of wine. Percy heard this and immediately respectfully said that he was looking for his father, but he didn't even know his father's name. However, Dionysus was very happy to hear this. He told Percy that he was Percy's father. Before they knew each other, Percy needed to go to the kitchen to get him a bottle of wine, but when Percy hadn't left yet, he had another surprise. Unexpectedly, the professor sitting in the wheelchair before was actually a centaur. At this time, Grover quickly stepped forward and introduced the centaur. His real name was Karen. He was both the camp's activities director and responsible for training heroes. At this time, Karen said that Dionysus was not Percy's father. Because Zeus had forbidden Dionysus from drinking wine, he sent Percy to steal wine for him. Later, Percy visited the camp under the guidance of Karen. This was a sacred place in the valley, where monsters did not disturb it. It was completely invisible to ordinary people. The students here were all hybrids of gods and mortals. At this time, Percy apologized because he had lost the pen that Karen had given him, but Karen asked Percy to look in his bag, because magical items do not obey the normal laws of physics, unless Percy voluntarily gave it up. Otherwise, the pen would always return to its owner. At this time, the two of them arrived at the student accommodation area here. Karen continued, saying that there were 12 cabins here, belonging to the 12 major gods of Olympus, and that the wooden cabin belonged to Hermes, the god of travelers. Not only did his two sons live here, but Hermes also adopted children who were not adopted by the gods. Since Percy had not been adopted yet, he would also stay here. At this time, Hermes' son Luke came to greet Percy. Luke expressed his regret for the death of Percy's mother, and he admired Percy's victory over the Minotaur. That night, Grover visited the Grovan Council in the camp, but here he received terrible news, so Grover hurried to the two teachers to report the news. He thought Percy's mother's death was suspicious. When humans were attacked by the Minotaur, they should have been crushed or blown up like a balloon. However, Percy's mother disappeared into thin air. It was as if the monster was dead. Therefore, there was only one possibility for this situation, because before mortals die, only Hades can intervene. So, Percy's mother must have been kidnapped. The two teachers knew all of this, but they said that they could not tell Percy the truth at the moment because the forces involved in this incident were very complicated. On the other hand, Percy was alone on the sandbank to warm himself by the fire. Suddenly, a series of terrible sounds rang out from afar. Percy did not know that Hades was calling him in his dream. Before Percy could understand the truth, he woke up from his nightmare. Luke saw this and stepped forward and explained that it was normal for a newly arrived demigod to have nightmares. Instead, Luke focused on striving for glory. When someone's name was crowned with glory, they became more dignified and prestigious. At this time, Percy bumped into Clary. She was the daughter of the war god Ares. Clary didn't believe that Percy could kill the Minotaur, but Luke stopped Clary's actions. Because Luke was the strongest swordsman in the camp, he was respected by everyone. Percy understood that if he got glory, then Clary wouldn't come to cause trouble again. So, Percy followed Luke to the training ground. The first step was to find his own suitable position, but when Percy shot the first arrow, all the students present were scared, so they asked Percy not to try again. The next plan was for him to try becoming a blacksmith, but right after that, Percy ended up sending his own creation flying. He also burned the sacks piled nearby. That night, Percy was unlucky enough to meet the 3 children of Ares again. So Percy was immediately thrown into the toilet. Clary said that if he admitted to his lie about killing the Minotaur, she would let him leave immediately. But of course, Percy did not compromise like that. As a result, he was pushed headfirst into the toilet. But at this time, the water in the toilet was mysteriously washed away. The 3 bullies were stunned at this moment, but in the next second, 3 jets of water threw them away. This made Percy very confused, and the 3 bullies quickly ran away. The toilet was now a mess. However, this strange scene was seen by a girl. She is Athena's daughter, named Anna. She followed Percy to seek special favor from him, because he will help her in the upcoming exciting competition. The next day, Percy asked Luke and knew that the game was actually like a simulated war. The winner would get all the glory, and Anna led her team to 3 consecutive victories. The reason Luke chose to fight on Anna's side was because long before they came here, they had experienced the fate of being chased by monsters together. At that time, they also lost a friend. Therefore, Luke considered Anna as his real younger sister. A few days later, the final capture of the flag battle began. The game was divided into 2 teams, red and blue. The team that captured the opponent's flag and crossed the river first would win. In this game, no one had to be seriously injured or killed, but they could use their own magical items to fight. At this time, Percy was on the blue team with Luke and Anna, but he was very confused because he didn't know what to do. As soon as the game started, Percy was taken into the forest by Anna, but she didn't explain anything. After Anna put on her hat, she became invisible because Percy didn't know what to do. He lay down on a tree stump dejectedly. After a long time, Percy discovered that Clary's red team had surrounded him. It turned out that they wanted to take advantage of the competition rules to get revenge for the previous incident. Only then did Percy get beaten up badly by them. If this continued, he would probably be in a hospital bed. So Percy got up and ran into the forest. However, before he could run far, he was caught again. At this time, Percy was cornered by them near a lake. Since Percy had no way out, he did everything he could to resist their attack. While the 2 sides were fighting, Percy accidentally broke Clary's weapon. Clary was a descendant of the god of war, Ares, so she could not bear such humiliation. Clary suddenly rushed over and grabbed Percy's collar. But at this moment, Luke held the red flag and planted it on the riverbank. Thus, the blue team won. Percy saw that and breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, Anna, who had disappeared, suddenly reappeared. It turned out that all of this was just her calculation. Percy was just a decoy to attract the target. Anna just said sorry and pushed him into the lake. But then a miracle happened. The wounds on Percy's body miraculously healed. What was even more amazing was that Poseidon's trident suddenly appeared above Percy's head. At this moment, Charon's voice came from afar. The god of the sea, Poseidon, had claimed his son. Percy was then taken into Poseidon's cabin, where he discovered that he was the only son of the god. However, 2 teachers informed Percy of some bad news. Not long ago, Zeus's lightning bolt was stolen. Now Poseidon accidentally got his forbidden son back, so Percy became a target of suspicion. Zeus gave him an ultimatum. If Percy did not return the lightning bolt within a week, Zeus would wage war with Poseidon. Another god was also irritated by the rivalry between Poseidon and Zeus, and that was Hades. So, Zeus's lightning bolt was probably in Hades' hands. He was the god of the underworld, so Poseidon needed Percy to make a trip to the underworld. But at that time, Percy was still unwilling. At that moment, Grover came and said that Percy's mother was still alive. She had been kidnapped by Hades and taken to the underworld. Percy heard that and started thinking about it. Just like that, Percy had just found his father and had to find his mother. Then, he went to see the prophet Delphi. He delivered the prophecy, stating that Percy had to go west to avoid confronting the treacherous gods. Under the summons of 2 teachers, Charon and Dionysus, all the excellent students of the camp were present there. Because the entrance to the underworld was far below the city of Los Angeles, this journey would certainly be extremely difficult. Therefore, Percy had to choose 2 people to complete this mission together. But when Charon's words were not finished, Percy immediately chose Anna. Percy's reason was also very convincing. The person who could always motivate him to be stronger was Anna, and the second person who went with Percy was Grover, because Grover was the only person he trusted the most. Before Percy left, Charon prepared $200 of the human world for him. He even prepared ancient Greek gold coins. They were used in the mythical world. At the same time, Luke also sent Percy a pair of magic cloth shoes. This was a gift from Luke's father, and he was sure it would help Percy a lot. After Percy and his 2 friends said goodbye to the camp, they boarded a long-distance bus. Percy was very confused and wondered why Charon didn't give them more money to fly. Grover quickly explained that since Percy was a forbidden child, if he flew in the sky, he could be attacked by Zeus at any time. Moreover, the sky was Zeus's domain, so they needed to stay away from it as much as possible. When the bus stopped at the rest stop, Anna immediately entered the convenience store. Here, she saw a woman who looked very familiar, so after Anna got on the woman's bus, she immediately put on an invisibility cap. It turned out that the woman turned out to be a female monster sent by Hades to hunt Anna. However, this time, Liz wanted to make a deal. As long as Anna could trick Percy into going alone to some remote place, after Liz caught him, she would never chase Anna again. At this moment, Anna turned around and said that Percy and Grover needed to open the side window right now. When Anna turned around, she saw Liz's true form. Seeing this, Percy and Grover quickly stood up and pushed the rear window open. The driver of the car in front saw this and could not continue driving. At this moment, Liz was actually blocked by the crowd in the middle of the bus. But at this moment, another monster rushed in from the window. Anna immediately threw a knife into the monster's chest, so it immediately turned into ashes. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the three of them jumped out of the car window. They had been traveling in the forest for a long time. At this moment, Grover realized that up ahead was the turn leading to the Satyr path. It was a route that cut through the wilderness, often used by the satyrs. Then, Grover smelled the smell of hamburgers nearby. Since the three of them were very hungry, they went to the hamburger place. When Anna saw that there were many petrified statues in this place, she felt that something was wrong. When the three of them were about to leave, Liz landed from behind them. When Percy hurriedly pulled out his pen and sword, Liz quickly turned around. At this time, a masked woman walked out of the store. It turned out to be Medusa, so no one dared to look her in the eye. But at this time, Medusa invited Percy's group to have dinner with her. Since the three of them didn't want to get into trouble with Liz behind them, they had no choice but to enter Medusa's house. After Percy's group sat down at the table, Medusa began to complain. She said that she used to be a priestess of the Athena temple. Medusa used to pray and pay tribute to Athena, but she never received any response. Until one day, Poseidon appeared and broke the silence. It turned out that Medusa loved Percy's father. However, Athena couldn't bear it, so she punished Medusa so that she could never see again. Anna was very upset after hearing that her mother was unfair. However, Medusa didn't seem to mind. She lied that something was burning and let Percy go in to help her. But when the two of them went into the kitchen, Medusa said that Anna couldn't be trusted. Sooner or later, Anna would choose to betray Percy. After all, Medusa was considered a sister by Poseidon, so she tried to help Percy get away from Anna before trouble came. But when Medusa turned around, Percy had long since disappeared, which made her angry. Medusa immediately took off her hat, but she couldn't see anyone, and Liz was still waiting outside, so Medusa deduced that Percy's group was still in this house. At this time, they secretly hid in the basement. Nod was like a magnificent palace, but there were many victims of Medusa here. Then, Grover thought of a way to escape. He would wear flying shoes to attract Medusa's attention. But before Grover could finish his plan, the shoes had already taken him up. At this moment, Medusa suddenly appeared in the basement. Percy was hiding behind a wooden box, and Dan quietly took out a pen, but the light it emitted revealed his position. When Medusa stepped forward, Percy only dared to stand up but did not dare to open his eyes. At this time, Grover fell down, making Medusa lose his guard. This allowed Anna to put the invisibility cap on Medusa. Then, Percy immediately swung his sword, and they heard the sound of Medusa's head rolling to the ground. They then came up with a way to deal with Liz outside, which was to take Medusa's head out and petrify it. At this time, Grover in the basement found his petrified uncle. It turned out that his uncle could only go this far. After the trouble, Anna and Percy had a little argument. They argued about the real purpose of this quest for him. Percy was also concerned about the deal between Anna and Liz. In the end, Grover couldn't stand the argument between the two. He spent the whole day trying to get on the right track, but the two had a conflict, which affected their quest. That's why Grover broke down to the core. Now, the three of them just needed to unite to successfully complete the mission. After they settled the grudge, they discussed how to dispose of Medusa's head. Such a powerful petrifying weapon could not stay in this world to cause trouble. So, the three of them packed the head and sent it to Olympus. Hermes' courier took the package to the Empire State Building. When he gently turned the elevator lock, the elevator appeared on the 600th floor, and this floor was where the 12 main gods of Olympus lived. At this time, on the long train to Los Angeles, a strange object flew in. At the same time, Percy saw the wonderful scenery outside the window. It was 4 centaurs running freely on the grassland. It was a pity that because of human destruction of nature, many centaurs had disappeared thousands of years ago. At this time, a policeman on the train suddenly came over. After the policeman checked the train tickets, minutes, the Percy group was taken to the destroyed train car. There was also a female witness who said that she heard their noise. The Percy group immediately deduced that there was a monster breaking into the train. At this time, the female witness suddenly came and sat at their table. Then, she mysteriously signaled the policeman to leave. Right after that, Grover saw a piece of broken glass on her coat. At this time, the woman stood up and said that today the Percy group must take responsibility for their parents' mistakes. It turned out that the woman was Echidna, the mother of the monsters that had been hunting them. She also hid one of her monster children in her backpack. Demigods like Percy had become their prey. Echidna smiled and told the three that she had come here today to teach her children how to hunt. As soon as Echidna's backpack opened, Anna stabbed the monster's tail with a knife. Immediately, the three took advantage of the chaos to escape from the train. But at this time, Anna had locked the train door. At that time, Grover had taken a sharp thorn from Percy's body. That was the trigger of the monster he had just been hit by. At this time, the doors behind the police began to be smashed. Due to this incident, the train was forced to stop suddenly for inspection, so the three took the opportunity to jump out of the car and run away. After that, Anna thought of a safe haven. Anna's group immediately went to a nearby location. That was the Archway in Lewis. This was also the temple of Athena. It was built by a demigod of Athena. Because this place was very sacred, neither monsters nor Echidna could enter here. However, when the three of them just stepped inside, Percy's poison took effect. They tried using water to heal the wound as usual, but this method did not work on the poison that Percy was poisoned with. At this time, a car accident happened on the street. When the three of them looked closer, they realized that Echidna had come here. So Percy's group went back into Emo, the temple. They tried to ask Athena for help, but when the three of them just entered the elevator, they saw Echidna entering here. They wondered if Athena's divine power had failed. It turned out that Medusa and Athena had long had a grudge against each other, but Percy's group recklessly cut off Medusa's head and sent it to Olympus. This had made Athena lose all face. Therefore, she did not want to use her power to protect them. Now, the three of them had to handle the situation themselves. As soon as they reached the top of the building, Anna immediately pressed the alarm. After that, Grover brought Percy to blend into the crowd to escape. Anna would stay alone to fight the monster. Before Percy and Grover left, Percy summoned the pen and gave it to Anna. But unexpectedly, when the door closed, he switched places with the two of them. Because Percy knew he had been poisoned, he could no longer be a burden to his two friends. Soon after, Echidna and the monster came to Percy. But Percy was not afraid at all. He swung his sword with all his might, but he was easily knocked down by the monster. Then, it slowly opened its mouth and breathed fire at Percy. When he was about to retreat, Echidna waved her hand to create a hole in front of him. Percy had no choice but to stagger up and swing his sword, but he was gored by the monster and almost fell down. The distance between Percy and the ground was very large, so if he fell, he would definitely lose his life, or Percy would go straight to hell to continue his final mission. Finally, he could not hold on anymore and slipped and fell. Suddenly, a column of water sprayed out from somewhere. It took Percy to the bottom of the sea. When he desperately wanted to swim out of the water, he discovered that one of his legs was stuck in a crevice. At this moment, a woman's voice rang out from under the water. The voice sounded like an elf saying, "It's okay, Percy. Your father sent me here to tell you that he is always here." She advised Percy to believe in himself and that he just needed to breathe normally. After that, Percy really gained the ability to breathe freely underwater. When he surfaced safely, he saw the police cordoning off the scene of the accident. At this time, Grover and Anna still did not know about Percy's life or death, but Anna saw three people sitting on a chair, knitting a sweater. She and Grover knew that these were the three gods of fate. One of them had cut the thread on his hand, which showed that Percy was in trouble. At this time, Anna and Grover did not have time to think much, so they hurriedly went to look around. Since Anna believed that Percy was still alive, they must have searched near the riverbank. Sure enough, Percy had indeed returned safely. But now, the police had determined that Percy's group had caused trouble on the train. So at this time, it was no longer possible for them to take the train or bus. The three of them could only move on their feet. On the way, Percy expressed his doubts. They only knew that the spark was in Hades's hands, but they did not know who had stolen it. At this time, a man on a motorcycle happened to stop by the side of the road. He asked the three of them if they needed any help. It turned out that the guy on the motorcycle was actually the god of war, Ares. He was also the son of Zeus. In order to avoid a war between Zeus and his younger brother, Ares was also looking for the lightning bolt. Since Ares was Percy's cousin, he also wanted to help Percy, so they went to a fast food restaurant to talk more clearly. At this time, Ares held up his cell phone to show Percy the news. His stepfather was at Percy's house and accused him. He said that Percy was involved in Sally's disappearance, so the police were looking for him. Since since time was running out, Percy needed to get to Los Angeles quickly. At this time, Ares also thought that finding Zeus's lightning bolt was not really important, because Zeus was just looking for an excuse to create a war with Poseidon. But if Percy wanted to complete this mission, Ares was still willing to help. But in return, Percy had to go to a nearby amusement park. He had to get back the shield that Ares left there, and Ares would think of a way to send the three people to hell tomorrow afternoon. Percy happily agreed, but Ares didn't want the three of them to run away, so he kept Grover as a hostage. That night, Percy and Anna went to the amusement park. As soon as they entered the turnstile, Percy was trapped inside by the mechanism. Anna took a quick look and realized it was a celestial body. The mechanism was like a security detector. It was built by Hephaestus, the ancient Greek god of craftsmen. When Anna told Percy to try pushing the door open, the display showed 001. As soon as Anna stepped inside, she became guest number 002 here tonight. At this time, the two people guessed the reason Ares left his shield here, because the god of war fell in love with the wife of the god of fire. The two people had been discovered secretly dating here, so when Ares had hurriedly left, he had accidentally lost his shield. Anna knew that and couldn't help but sigh. She felt that this family was really chaotic. Not long after, Anna and Percy saw the glowing tunnel of love. They deduced that this was where Ares was caught red-handed, and the shield must be inside. So Percy and Anna went down to the boat, and the two people slowly drifted inside. But just then, the boat suddenly plunged down. After a long slide, Percy and Anna reached a secret room. Here, the two people saw Ares's original shield. It was right on the hand of the Cupid statue. So the two people quickly jumped into the water, but didn't expect the water to be extremely fierce. Luckily, Percy could breathe underwater, so he successfully brought Anna to shore. Although the two saw the shield right in front of them, they had no idea how to get it. Legend has it that Hephaestus created a chair made of gold. These things were monolithic machines and were a gift from Hephaestus to Hera, but when she sat in the chair, it got stuck and wouldn't move. No god could break the chair. Finally, when Hephaestus married the goddess of love Aphrodite, the chair released Hera. The chair was apparently part of the deal. If either of them sat in it, they would get the shield. Then, Percy took out the pen tip and handed it to Anna. Then he sat on the chair without hesitation. Then, the mechanism was immediately activated, and Percy was gradually covered in a layer of gold. After a while, Percy's entire body was completely covered. Anna could only helplessly watch him become a statue. At the same time, Ares's shield also fell. Then, Anna tried to find a way to unlock the mechanism. At this time, an old man came out from the second floor of the Great Hall, and a ladder slowly rose from the water. It led straight to the second floor. It turned out that the old man was Hephaestus. He said that Anna could leave now, but Percy could only stay here as a statue. However, Anna could not abandon her friends like that. She could not even stand the god's behavior like that. What Anna said next was truly touching. She had really convinced the fire god Hephaestus. Only after Anna cried did Percy slowly take off his golden coat. It was love and hope that made him come back. In the end, Percy and Anna succeeded in getting Ares' shield back, and Ares also kept his promise. He used a car to take Percy's group. Ares said that they would be in Las Vegas in a few hours, and Hermes was also playing at a casino in Vegas. After Ares said this, he closed the car door. Grover then realized that Ares was hiding something from them, because he thought he had gotten information from Ares. Grover also said that he already knew who had stolen Zeus's lightning bolt. At this time, Anna used a mirror to reflect the light to create a rainbow. Then, Percy threw a gold coin into that space. With that money, they asked the goddess Iris to contact the Half-Blood camp. They wanted to contact Mr. Karen, but the person who appeared was Luke. It turned out that Mr. Karen was extremely busy at the moment, because everyone thought that war was about to happen. The houses were choosing sides. Then Anna revealed Grover's guess that they knew who stole the lightning bolt, because the three of them had met Ares and made him tell the truth, because Ares had tried to cover up for the culprit. It was definitely his daughter. Percy thought this was not only related to the loss of Zeus's lightning bolt, but he was also afraid that there was a bigger conspiracy behind it. But when Percy said that they were looking for Luke's father, Anna immediately cut off contact because she knew that the relationship between Luke and his father was not very good. At this point, Grover brought two more news. The good news was that the truck carrying them had arrived in Las Vegas. The bad news was that the driver of the truck was a smuggler. So in the next second, the three of them released the animals locked in the truck. Then, the next person, they would go to the hotel called Lotus to seek Hermes' help. As soon as Percy's group entered the hotel, they were attracted by the lively scene here. Percy even wanted to play a little before continuing the mission. However, Grover immediately reminded them of the ancient Greek epic. It was said that those who ate the lotus flowers would forget their identity. So, the three agreed not to eat anything anything here, but they were helpless as soon as they entered. Since there were so many people in this place, how could they find Hermes here? So, the three of them had to split up to look for Hermes. At this time, Anna took the opportunity to explain to Percy the reason Luke always disagreed with his father was because his mother was a prophet of mankind. She often saw terrible scenes, so Luke blamed everything on his father, and Luke's father was looking for an opportunity to mend their relationship. Therefore, Luke would definitely stop this meeting. At this time, Percy also shared his confusion. He always had strange dreams. When Percy was on the truck, he dreamed that he heard a conversation. In it, a man said that he had provided the tools. At this time, the person opposite said that he had just stolen the spark. He also mentioned that the battle was about to begin, but it was not just a fight between Zeus and Poseidon. They seemed to have even bigger plans. What was even more surprising was that he also knew that Percy would meet him. Anna heard Percy and immediately guessed that the person he mentioned was Hades. That was Hades' conversation with Clary. It seemed that the situation was more complicated than they imagined. At this time, Percy happened to see Hermes at the gambling table. He really knew that Percy's group would go to hell because Hermes existed beyond space and time. He knew very well about Percy's group. However, Hermes had no intention of helping, so Anna said that they were Luke's friends. Unexpectedly, her words were actually effective. Finally, the three of them could sit down and talk seriously. Then, Anna didn't beat around the bush and got straight to the point. She wanted Hermes to help them get to hell, and he had to help them retrieve Zeus's lightning bolt from Hades. At this point, Hermes also admitted that he knew a secret entrance to hell, but every time he thought about the serious consequences, he stopped caring. That made Anna very disappointed. When she turned to leave, she quietly took off her invisibility cap. But when Percy also wanted to leave, Hermes told him that it was too late. Only then did Anna and Percy realize that they were in big trouble. They had only been here for 20 minutes, but in fact, Percy's group had been delayed inside for 3 days. Hermes must have known that Percy's mission could not be completed, so he deliberately delayed their time there. Fortunately, Anna had escaped in time. She had also stolen Hermes' car key, so Percy and Anna hurriedly went to find Grover. They found him trapped in the virtual world game. Then, the three of them searched the entire parking lot. Finally, they found a yellow taxi with matching keys, but they did not expect that there was a letter in the car, which explained the secret of the back door to hell. The letter also reminded them that there were important maps in the trunk, and this car could take the three of them anywhere they wanted. But at this time, there had to be someone who knew how to drive the taxi. Percy volunteered for this difficult role. After a while of struggling, the taxi finally got out of the garage door. At this time, a truck was coming and crashed into the taxi. However, just then, the taxi miraculously moved to the beach. Unexpectedly, in just a short time, Percy's group arrived at Santa Monica Beach in Los Angeles. After that, Percy followed the agreement with his father and dived into the sea. But he did not see his father, but an ocean goddess who had been waiting for him here for a long time. It turned out that the summer solstice had passed. This meant that the deadline given by Zeus to find the lightning bolt had expired. At this time, Poseidon was gathering his army to prepare for battle. The goddess accepted Poseidon's instructions. She came to tell Percy that it was not his fault that he had not completed this task. Percy could finish the journey and return to the Half-Blood camp right now. But Percy didn't want to stop because he knew that the war was a bore, just the beginning of Hades' plan. Moreover, the scarier things were yet to come. Percy needed to stop this war from happening. Then he asked the sea goddess for help, so she gave Percy 4 pearls. Each pearl would bring a person back safely from hell. When morning came, Percy entered a shop because the secret passage to hell was in this shop. The salesman was the gatekeeper here. He was the one who always hunted travelers. Legend has it that whoever lay on his bed would be locked up. While Percy was talking to the gatekeeper about the beds, he was suddenly pushed up by a mysterious force, and the blanket wrapped him tightly. It turned out that Anna had turned invisible to do that. Percy's group didn't have to spend much effort, and they successfully passed the gatekeeper. Fortunately, the door to hell was hidden in the office. For safety reasons, Percy distributed pearls to everyone before entering. This was a dark and gloomy hell. At this time, the 3 people saw the ferryman, Theron. He was taking the newcomers across the Stygian River. So, Percy's group immediately pushed into the queue. Unexpectedly, Theron's expression was extremely cold. He could see at a glance that the 3 people were not dead. So Percy used gold coins to try to bribe him, but Theron immediately blew the whistle on his neck. Immediately after, a giant 3-headed dog appeared. The 3 people saw this and quickly ran away. But before they could run far, Grover was swallowed by a dog's head. Percy and Anna had to separate, so they could escape the bite just now. At this time, Percy felt that running was not the best way, so he pulled out his pen and sword and prepared to face the enemy. But unexpectedly, at this time, the 3-headed dog wagged its tail comfortably. It turned out that Anna had climbed on its neck and scratched it. After a while, the 3-headed dog really fell asleep with a face face full of pleasure. Then, Grover also escaped from its stinky mouth. At this time, Anna hurriedly reminded the two friends that they could take the opportunity to fly up the wall with flying shoes. Soon after, Grover successfully pulled Percy up. When they wanted to go down to pick up Anna, Percy caught a red ball. It turned out that Anna had used the dog to get up the wall faster. After all three were safe, Anna threw the ball away to lure the dog to another place. But at this time, Grover suddenly discovered that his gem had been swallowed by the dog. But Percy's group still had to move to a forest. At this time, Percy took his gem and gave it to Grover. Percy said that he had to wait until he found the lightning. Then, he would think of a way to rescue his mother. At this moment, Anna was suddenly caught in a tree root and could not move. It turned out that this was the legendary kingdom of Asphodel. All the resentful spirits would be trapped here. To avoid the three-headed dog from catching up, Anna immediately gave the gem to Percy. She said that she was alone here but was fine. When Percy and Grover escaped from the forest, they went to a desert. At this moment, the two of them could no longer hear the three-headed dog. But at this moment, the flying shoes that Grover was wearing were out of control. It was pulling the two of them towards a black hole ahead. Luckily, Percy had stuck his sword into the sand, thanks to which the two of them were held back. They held on like that until the shoes slipped off Grover's feet. But at this moment, Percy realized that his backpack seemed much heavier. When he and Grover looked inside, they were both astonished, for the backpack contained Zeus's stolen lightning bolt. At that moment, Percy remembered that the backpack belonged to Ares. It turned out that they had been fooled by him from the beginning. It seemed that Ares and Hades were working together. After Percy and Grover crossed the desert, they finally arrived at Hades' temple. Two guards began to open the door. It seemed that they had been waiting for Percy's arrival for a long time. Here, Percy and Grover met Hades. As soon as Percy met him, he asked where his mother was. They were then taken to a very spacious hall. They saw that Percy's mother had been turned into a stone statue. Hades then explained that if humans were strangled to death by the Minotaur, they would have no chance of survival. But Hades saved Percy's mother at that critical moment, and this brought Percy here to find him. Now it was time for Hades to make a deal. But what surprised Percy and Grover was that what Hades wanted was not the lightning bolt, but his stolen helmet of invisibility. It turned out that someone had stolen Hades's invisibility cap. Then that person became invisible and stole Zeus's lightning bolt. In fact, Hades was living very comfortably here. He didn't want to get involved in those boring family disputes. At this moment, Percy suddenly guessed the real culprit. That person was Zeus's father, Kronos. Because Zeus had taken away his throne, he was chopped into pieces and thrown into hell. Just now, when the lightning appeared in the backpack, some force had pulled Percy and Grover into the abyss. And what Percy kept hearing in his dream was Kronos' voice. All this was actually done by him. At this moment, Percy promised to get the invisibility cap back to return it to Hades. After that, he would come back here to take his mother away. After Percy finished speaking, he and Grover threw the gem and disappeared. Soon after, the two woke up on the beach. They had indeed seen Anna safely returned, and Ares was swaggering forward with his divine sword. The battle was about to begin, and the truth was about to be revealed. At this time, Percy was ready to solo Ares because it was Ares who indirectly stole Zeus's lightning bolt and blamed Percy. This would cause a war between Zeus and Poseidon. Then Kronos would have a chance to take back the throne. Now, as long as Percy defeated Ares first, he could retrieve Hades's lost helmet of invisibility. But since Ares was the god of war, he easily defeated Percy. After a while, he was lifted up and thrown to the ground. At the crucial moment, Percy saw a huge wave rolling up on the sea. Immediately after, Ares was swallowed by the huge wave. After the huge wave passed, Ares had just picked up his weapon when Percy slashed his calf with his sword. After that, Ares realized his failure, so he got angry and revealed his true form. After that, Ares left Hades's invisibility cap. At the same time, a light was turned on in the beachside resort cabin. Percy saw that and thought his mother had been released by Hades. But when he quickly opened the door, the person inside was Liz. It turned out that she had come here just to take Hades's magic cap. Before Liz left, she left a very meaningful sentence. She wished Percy's group good luck in Olympus. And in fact, Percy also really wanted to go there to return the lightning bolt to Zeus. Above all, they needed to convince Zeus to avoid the war, because everything was Kronos' plot. He was trying to take back the throne. Percy then told Anna and Grover to return to Camp Half-Blood immediately. They needed to inform the teacher to arrest Clary. Next, Percy went to the Empire State Building alone. Without saying a word, he placed the lightning bolt on the reception desk. Percy was then taken to the elevator and taken to the 600th floor of the building. This was Mount Olympus, where the 12 gods lived. Percy soon reached the top. There, he met Zeus Zeus sitting on his throne. Percy immediately gave him the lightning bolt. He then told him about Kronos regaining his strength. However, when Zeus heard this, he was eager to fight and told Percy to leave. But Percy wanted to convince Zeus to stop the war. The harsh words really made Zeus angry. When he was about to kill Percy, Poseidon suddenly appeared and stopped Zeus. To save his son's life, Poseidon was willing to surrender without a fight. Finally, Poseidon spoke sincere words to his opponent, and he successfully calmed Zeus's anger. Then, Poseidon returned and gave Percy another pearl. Just like that, Percy teleported back to Camp Half-Blood. At this time, he was applauded by the campers. Anna quickly walked over to hug him and quietly told him that Clary was safe. Luke and Anna then explained that the campers were preparing for war. So right now, they had no evidence to arrest anyone, because that would only make the situation more tense. Now that Percy had returned victorious, he would tell the whole truth to Mr. Karen. That night, everyone was celebrating Percy's group's victory. But at this moment, Percy suddenly remembered the prophet's warning. Everything had happened as the prophet predicted. There was one last thing that had not happened. That was, Percy would be betrayed by someone close to him. Maybe the one who stole the lightning bolt was not Clary, but Luke had given Percy a pair of shoes, and it almost dragged him down to the abyss of Tartaros and hell. At this moment, Luke finally admitted the truth, because he hated the gods and considered them enemies. If Kronos returned, then war would break out between them. Luke finished speaking and picked up his sword. Percy saw this and had to draw his sword to defend himself. But in fact, Luke used his sword to open the door to this camp. When people were not controlled, they would no longer be hunted by monsters and gods. It was Kronos who made Luke see the truth clearly, that no god was a good parent. Luke wanted to open another door, but his action was stopped by Percy. Luke realized that persuading Percy was not successful, so Luke started a fight with him. When he was about to kill Percy, Anna suddenly appeared. In fact, she had been standing here invisible for a long time, so she had heard the whole conversation between the two of them. At this point, Luke didn't want anything to do with Anna and Percy anymore, so he rushed through the gate. The truth was finally revealed. Percy also said goodbye to the teachers at the camp to return home. Anna also wanted to return home to visit her father. Grover had received a prospecting license, and he would start searching for Pan, the god of the gods. Soon after, Percy returned to the beach house. Finally, he saw his mother had returned from the dead. But after Percy and his mother happily hugged each other, the day turned into night. Soon, a man dressed in black holding a lamp came to the door. He said that he would soon meet Percy in his world. When Percy woke up from his dream, his mother had really returned. But at this time, Percy's stepfather had received a package by express delivery. When he curiously opened it, his whole body was instantly petrified.